Good evening. This is Wilkie Frieson for our weekly voting workshop, and I'm speaking to you from the Clark Historic Site in historic East Roanoke, Alabama. I'd like to start this workshop this evening to follow up on some information for the update on the unofficial results of the primary a couple of weeks ago. So I hope you can see my drawing here. So the unofficial results, we have total registered voters, 19,232, and total votes, 4,921, which is about 25%. And I'm going to follow up with this information. This is extremely low turnout. This is very low turnout for any election, which is going to bring me to tonight's subject, which is the organizers. We can't talk about voter turnout. We can't talk about our situation now without talking about some things that happened in the past and the activities of some of our ancestors and our organizers. So tonight is not going to just be a history lesson. Tonight is more of a leadership lesson, because every right that we enjoy today exists because somebody organized people to fight for it at some time in the past. So let's get started with our slides. So in response to the recent attacks on Black voting rights, and let me just settle that argument right now, there have been attacks on Black voting rights. There's no argument. There should be no argument about that anymore. So what should we do? What action should we take? Should we organize? Should we educate? Should we mobilize? Should we be registering voters? Or should we just wait for someone else to rescue us? See, our grandparents knew. The problem is our grandparents knew, our parents knew. The question is, do we know? Do you know? And here's the secret. Here's the main point. Political power is not inherited. It must be maintained. We can't just rest on the work of our ancestors. We've got to keep doing that good work. We have to keep getting into good trouble. We have to keep pushing the bar. And let's talk about some of our ancestors. So on the screen, I hope you can see some of these ancestors. So first we have an attorney, Arthur Madison. And some of these guys you may have never heard of, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about them. So Mr. Arthur Madison was an Alabama native and a lawyer who was arrested and disbarred in 1945 for representing black people who had tried to register to vote. In the Alabama courts, he challenged the legality of the Alabama voting laws in 1944, and he was disbarred for his trouble. He later moved to New York and became a member of the Harlem Lawyers Association. The next is Mr. Rufus A. Lewis. Mr. Lewis was connected to the Ross and Clayton Funeral Home in Montgomery, Alabama, and assisted with transportation during the Montgomery bus boycotts. He worked in civil rights, voting rights, and had the distinction of being appointed as the first U.S. Marshal in the state of Alabama by President Jimmy Carter. Before there was a Voting Rights Act, he was teaching black citizens how to pass literacy tests and register to vote. And then we have Mr. E.D. Nixon. Mr. Nixon was president of the Montgomery branch NAACP, and before Rosa Parks became famous, Mr. E.D. Nixon was organizing civil rights in Montgomery, Alabama. These men were organizing voters before the Voting Rights Act of 1965 existed. They built the movement. Here go some more ancestors. We got Mr. Q.D. Adams. He understood that voting registration was the foundation of political power. Mr. W.C. Patton, on the far left, he founded the Alabama State Coordinating Committee for Registering and Voting. Dr. Joel Reed of the ADC, and Mr. Jerome Gray, both of the ADC. They helped transform protest into political power. They kept the movement moving. And more recently, we've had Dr. Randy B. Kelly and other countless local organizers, ministers, and community leaders. Leadership didn't stop. The movement just evolved. Now, let's take a look at this slide here. I just want you to look at this group of people. And I'm just going to ask one simple question. What do you see? I see a blueprint. These are people who organize. These are our organizers from the past and present. And they educated, organized, registered, mobilized, voted, led, and that's how you change policy. That's the blueprint. Educate, organize, register, mobilize, vote, lead, and then you can change policy. And that's the blueprint that built black political power across the state of Alabama. Those were the organizers. And that's the blueprint. And now here we come to one of my favorites. Mr. Wilkie Clark was an organizer. He joined the Alabama State Coordinating Committee for Registration and Voting. He was vice chairman of Alabama Congressional District 5. And he was organizing in 5 counties before the Voting Rights Act. So I'm going to come back on screen for a second because I want to talk about this a little bit. See, here's the thing. See, Granddaddy, Wilkie Clark, he went to World War II, fought in the World War, returned home after fighting for this country, and still could not vote. Returned home to Alabama, fought for his country, decorated soldier from World War II, and he could not vote. And that was a common story for a lot of black men, black soldiers, veterans who returned home. And see, that's what I feel like motivated him to take action and get involved in the civil rights activity and in voter registration. Because as I've been saying since the beginning of this workshop, voting is access. Voting is your voice. Voting is power. And they understood that in 1945. They understood it in 1953. They understood it all the way up to the passing of the Voting Rights Act. They understood that is the key. And after his work with the Alabama Coordinating Committee, he moved on to work with the NAACP, the ADC, and community leadership activities. See, Granddaddy, he wasn't waiting on permission. He was building voting power. He was doing what he could. And finally, he became a political candidate. And he was the first black man to run for Randolph County Board of Education in 1976. So that brings us to the question, why would a man who fought the system decide to run for office? Because eventually your protest must lead to participation. You can't just keep protesting. Your protest, you are making aware your grievances. You're bringing awareness to the grievance. You are speaking out about a problem. But eventually, you have to stop protesting and you have to become part of the process to try to make changes. And that's the thing with our ancestors. That's why we must remember our ancestors, because they didn't leave us monuments. They didn't leave us monuments. They left us the blueprint so that we would know what to do when we look at our problems that we're having today. The problems really at the core, the problems are the same. The solutions are the same. So what happens when a generation forgets? What happens? And I'm gonna come back on screen for a minute. What happens when we forget all of our ancestors and the work that was done? You're looking at it. You're getting rollback on voting rights, from the Shelby County decision to the Catlett decision a couple of months ago, to redistricting, to voter ID laws, voter suppression, voter disenfranchisement. You see what happens when we forget to fight. You see what happens when you forget to fight. And this is what happens. So what can we do? You got to use what you have. So Rufus Lewis, he was working in the funeral business. He used the funeral home at that time. Funeral homes were one of the few black businesses. They had access to vehicles, so they helped get people to work during the bus boycott. Wilkie Clark worked with the NAACP. Dr. Joe Reed helped found ADC and build up a representation within the political process. Dr. Randy Kelly works in the church community. You have to use what you have. What do you have? What can you contribute to the fight? You have a church? Do you have a social media page or platform? Do you have a business? Do you have a classroom, a friend group, a family? Because here's the thing, we need organizers. We need people who are going to help organize a movement to increase our vote, increase our representation, and use the right that our ancestors had fought for. We don't need anymore. We don't need celebrities. We don't need influencers. We don't need spectators. We need organizers. We need people who will help organize this movement. So, who Who's going to step up to the plate? Here's our ancestors. Here are our ancestors. They opened the door. They opened the door for us. They fought to make the progress and so that we could enjoy the rights that we have. Who else is going to step up to the plate? Dr. Arthur Madison, his work is finished. He's gone. Rufus Lewis's work is finished. Mr. E.D. Nixon's work is finished. Mr. Q.D. Adams' work is finished. W.C. Patton's work is finished. Wilkie Clark, his work is done. Their struggle is over. And one day, Dr. Joe Reed, Jerome Gray, Randy Kelly, and all of today's leaders will pass the torch as well. The question is not whether these leaders existed. The question is whether we learned anything from them. They organized, they educated, they registered voters, they mobilized their communities, they built political power, they left us the blueprint. They showed us the way. And tonight I challenge you, don't just admire their work, don't just admire it, let's use it. We don't need to just celebrate this history. Let's continue it. Let's not just remember them, let's follow their example, because the future of Black political power in Alabama is no longer in their hands. It's in ours. I hope everyone found this session of the workshop informative. I hope you'll join me next week for next Thursday for our next session. Thank you all for coming. Hope to see you next week. And this is Wilkie Frieson from the Clark Historic Site signing off.